It looked like just another gentle British sitcom about growing old, but Waiting for God was far stranger than it appeared. Behind the laughter and teacups were creative clashes, dark humour, and a few secrets that make this show delightfully weird even today. Fact 1.
Diana, Trent.
Tom Ballard.
When Waiting for God first aired in 1990, most viewers expected cosy humour and polite chatter. What they got was something far darker. The show's creator, Michael Aitkins, wanted to expose the indignities of aging in a system that treated the elderly as invisible, so he wrapped that social critique in razor-sharp comedy. Diana and Tom weren't just grumpy pensioners. They were rebels raging against time, hypocrisy, and bureaucracy. The jokes about death, dementia, and loneliness were unusually honest for television. Even critics were unsure how to categorize it. Part sitcom, part social commentary, part existential crisis. Some networks feared it was too bleak for primetime, but that dark edge was exactly what made it iconic. It made audiences laugh at the absurdity of life, not just the punchlines. Underneath the tea and biscuits, Waiting for God was one of the weirdest, bravest comedies of its time. A show about mortality that somehow made you feel alive.
Only if they're lucky, the blessed release of an early death.
Fact 2.
Harvey's died. Let's bang a stake through his heart before the sun comes up.
Stephanie Cole's fierce, sarcastic Diana Trent wasn't just a fictional creation. She was inspired by someone very real. Michael Aitkins based her on his own grandmother, who had a razor-sharp tongue and zero tolerance for nonsense. She terrified the staff at her nursing home, once telling a doctor, "You'll retire before I do." Aitkins was fascinated by how aging women were expected to be quiet and grateful, so he wrote Diana as the exact opposite. Cole embraced that energy completely, transforming it into television gold. The weird part is that Cole was only in her late 40s when filming began, far younger than her character. She studied older women's movements and even wore weighted shoes to mimic joint pain. The performance was so convincing that some fans genuinely believed she was elderly. Her sharp wit, withering looks, and absolute refusal to soften became the heart of the show. It wasn't just acting, it was rebellion in pearls.
Does this mean I can't have sex in a bath of Zabayone?
Fact 3.
What's the matter?
Wind. Been at me all night. It must be yesterday's dead dog stew.
Graham Crowden's lovable Tom Ballard was one of the strangest characters ever to grace British TV. According to the writers, they didn't design him like a normal sitcom lead. They wrote him backwards. Instead of giving him clear goals, they wrote from his reactions to Diana. He was an optimist trapped in chaos, a dreamer in a decaying world. Crowden improvised much of his dialogue, adding odd pauses and philosophical asides.
Good afternoon, Flower.
Sometimes he'd slip into surreal monologues about God, pigeons, or the pointlessness of wallpaper. The cast never knew whether to laugh or stay in character. Those bizarre moments gave Tom a strange depth. Half clown, half poet. The writers later admitted they never fully understood him either. Crowden said, Tom was either enlightened or completely mad. Maybe both. That ambiguity made him unforgettable. It's rare for a sitcom to give us a character so weirdly sincere and delightfully unpredictable. Fact 4.
And as we are bandying compliments around, may I say you're just as vile and crabby as ever.
Why, thank you, Tom. Smile, please.
Before it became Waiting for God, the show was nearly called Last Bus to Sunset. The idea was to emphasize the theme of old age as a final journey, but the network found it too depressing and possibly too literal. Michael Aitkins wanted something that sounded funny and ironic. One afternoon he scribbled, "Waiting for God" in his notes, a cheeky nod to Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot. The title fit perfectly, a play on words about people waiting for nothing in particular, yet refusing to give up. Executives loved it once they realized it was both witty and slightly blasphemous. Some religious groups complained at first, thinking it mocked faith, but Aitkins shrugged it off. He said, "It's not about God, it's about life's waiting room." The weird existential humor of the title summed up the entire show in 4 words. It's bleak, it's brilliant, and it's undeniably British.
But what you can do for your country.
Dear God, if you want to prove to me that you really do exist, blow him up.
Fact 5.
The obvious just about sums you up. An obvious old fuddy-duddy.
And you're an obvious old Lucretia Borgia.
Here's something truly odd. The two stars rarely rehearsed together before filming. Both Cole and Crowden believed over-rehearsing would kill the spark. Instead, they'd meet right before a scene, trade a few jokes, and then dive straight into filming. Their chemistry came from spontaneity, not precision. Sometimes they'd throw each other completely off script just to provoke real reactions. The crew often struggled to keep straight faces. Director Sue Belbin encouraged this chaos, saying it gave the show its raw energy. Some episodes felt like theatre. Unpredictable, alive, and slightly dangerous. The weird spontaneity made Diana and Tom's banter feel absolutely real. Their timing was natural because it wasn't perfectly timed at all. That unpolished authenticity became one of the show's trademarks. It's proof that sometimes the best performances come from a little bit of chaos.
What rank?
Well, I ended up scathed.
What's that?
Supreme Commander, Allied Forces in Europe.
Fact 6.
Can you drive this thing?
Of course I bloody can.
The peaceful-looking Bayview retirement home wasn't as peaceful behind the scenes as it appeared on screen. The exterior filming location was a real estate complex near Worthing, and locals were less than thrilled when the cast and crew arrived. Residents complained that filming disrupted their routines, with camera cranes and vans blocking their beloved walking paths. One caretaker even called the production a nuisance of noise and fake wheelchairs.
I have a
Extras dressed as elderly residents often wandered too far from set, confusing passers-by who thought they'd escaped from care. The owners of the building grew tired of the chaos and tried to end the contract after the first season. But the BBC wasn't about to abandon such a recognisable location, and they fought to keep filming. To smooth things over, the crew started bringing biscuits and tea for real residents, which actually worked. Gradually, the once hostile locals began enjoying the attention, even watching from windows as scenes were shot. Some found it hilarious that their quiet home had become a national comedy landmark. The production turned frustration into friendship, even inviting locals to appear as background extras. One resident joked, "I didn't want them here. Now I'm famous at bingo." The strange tension between reality and fiction made the set feel almost like a second Bayview. What started as a neighbourhood annoyance became part of the show's authentic charm, and in the end, the grumpiest residents couldn't help but laugh. Maybe that was waiting for God's greatest trick of all.
And the high streets are crawling with old loopies.
Do take a pill, dear.
Hello, Geoffrey. Shouldn't you have your wife on a lead?
Fact 7.
How are we today?
Same as every day, wondering what I am doing in this place when I could be out shoving my head through a mangle.
If you've ever noticed Diana Trent's wine glass, it's not just a prop. It's a statement. Stephanie Cole insisted on adding it to nearly every scene, saying that Diana needed something elegant to hold while cutting people down. The glass became an extension of her character, a symbol of confidence and control in a world that kept trying to silence her. Even when the script didn't mention it, Cole would quietly lift it mid-scene, turning a sip into a punchline. The prop team found an antique crystal goblet from the 1930s, and it became her personal signature. It wasn't washed between takes. Cole thought the smudges made it feel lived in. Fans began to associate Diana's wine with her rebellious spirit, and soon it became a running joke in the writer's room. Some episodes even played with it, like when Tom replaced her wine with grape juice just to see if she noticed. The glass's subtle clinking became part of the show's rhythm, punctuating her sharpest insults. Symbolically, it represented independence, a woman who refused to conform to how she was supposed to behave. Over time, that single glass came to embody Diana herself, refined, unpredictable, and slightly dangerous. In fan forums, people still refer to her wine moments as the sip of defiance. It's weird how one tiny object became one of British TV's most memorable power symbols. Even Stephanie Cole later said, "That glass had better comic timing than half of us." And honestly, she wasn't wrong.
Do you deny that the said burger joint is owned by your brother-in-law?
I don't believe this. Are you trying to blackmail me?
Yes, of course.
Fact 8.
All men are swine! Okay. You too.
Despite its success, Waiting for God had a turbulent relationship with the BBC. Executives were nervous about how cynical and political the humour could get. They worried older audiences would find it depressing, not empowering. Michael Aitkins refused to soften the tone, telling them, "You hired me for honesty, not comfort." This boldness sparked tension behind the scenes that lasted for years. At one point, the BBC quietly discussed cancelling the show after season 3, claiming it had fulfilled its purpose. But the fans had other ideas. Thousands of handwritten letters flooded in, demanding more episodes and praising the show's brutal honesty about aging. Some letters came from retirement homes that even organised Diana Trent nights to celebrate their heroine. Faced with public pressure, the network renewed it, reluctantly. Cast members joked that the show had become a real-life rebellion against authority, just like the one on screen. Stephanie Cole said, "We weren't just acting, we were living the script." That weird, art-imitating life energy gave Waiting for God its edge. The producers won the battle, but the scars of that creative war stayed visible in every sarcastic line. It was proof that even the BBC couldn't silence a good fight against conformity. Fact 9.
Oh, look at the seagulls. Marian's face has slipped into her ice cream.
One of the strangest things about Waiting for God is how often it accidentally predicted real-life politics. Jokes written in the early 90s about government cutbacks, privatisation, and healthcare scandals ended up coming true decades later. In one scene, Diana sarcastically warns that one day they'll charge us for breathing, which became oddly prophetic. Fans noticed that the satire felt sharper with each passing year, almost like the writers had a crystal ball. Michael Aitkins insisted it was pure coincidence, but viewers weren't so sure. They called the show the comedy that warned us, and online discussions still dissect its uncanny accuracy. Some lines about media corruption and corporate greed feel ripped from modern headlines. The weirdest part is how timeless it feels. Its message about dignity, decay, and defiance fits every generation. Even younger viewers today find it unsettlingly relevant. The humour hasn't aged, but society has caught up to it. Watching it now feels less like revisiting a sitcom and more like reading a prophecy with punchlines. What started as gentle satire became a strangely prescient portrait of Britain's future. And maybe that's the real secret. Waiting for God wasn't waiting at all. It was warning us.
Would you like to meet a legend in his own bedtime? You see, she wants to.
Fact 10.
Diana!
You stupid old cat!
Unlike most comedies of its time, Waiting for God didn't rely on canned laughter to cue audiences. The creators wanted the show to breathe, to let silence become part of the humour. Early test screenings without laughter left viewers unsure whether to chuckle or cry. Some thought it was a drama, others called it existential comedy. The BBC panicked and insisted on adding laughter back, but only from a live audience.
Maybe we could show her people who are worse off than her.
Well, we're not going down the morgue.
This compromise gave the show a raw, unpredictable rhythm. In some episodes, the laughs faded into awkward quiet, amplifying the darker jokes.
Bit of a shock.
Look, get out of the bloody way, will you?
You fix the little...
It was weird, but strangely powerful. The absence of constant laughter made the humour feel more real, less artificial. Viewers weren't being told to laugh, they were invited to decide for themselves. The pauses, sighs, and awkward silences became part of the punchline. It turned comedy into something almost theatrical. What could have been a mistake became one of the show's most distinctive traits. It proved that sometimes silence can be just as funny as noise.
A catapult and acorns.
So, squirrels eat acorns. I was passing them one.
Fact 11. That upbeat, jazzy theme song carries a secret layer of melancholy. Composer Alan Hawkshaw built it around fragments of the funeral hymn Abide With Me, slowed down and disguised in major chords. He wanted it to sound cheerful, but bittersweet, like laughter hiding fear. The rhythm wobbles slightly, mirroring the show's fragile balance between hope and despair. Few viewers ever noticed the hymn's ghost beneath the melody, yet subconsciously, it made the show feel deeper and strangely emotional. When Diana enters a scene, the key subtly shifts upward, a musical nod to rebellion. Hawkshaw said it reminded him of visiting his mother in care, where joy and sadness lived in the same room. The tune wasn't meant to be catchy, it was meant to be human. That weird emotional duality made it unforgettable. It told the story before a single line was spoken. The opening notes carried humour and heartbreak in equal measure. It's a theme that still lingers in the minds of anyone who's ever felt both at once.
Harvikins, Wakey, wakey.
God almighty. Oi.
Fact 12.
Aha!
What you doing?
It's registering.
What?
Damp. You must have water on the knee.
Graham Crowden hated rehearsing, calling it the enemy of truth. He believed every scene should feel spontaneous, even risky. When directors asked for retakes, he'd grin and say, "You can't improve perfection, darling." He often went off script, forcing co-stars to improvise just to keep up. Stephanie Cole once said, "Acting with Graham was like wrestling a genius tornado." His unpredictability gave the show an electric edge that no rewrite could match. Sometimes he'd turn a simple line into a rambling philosophical speech about mortality. The editors learned to shape whole episodes around his energy. Fans loved that every scene felt alive and slightly chaotic. Crowden's Tom Ballard wasn't a caricature. He was a real man trying to make sense of nonsense. His mistakes became moments of brilliance. The weird freedom he brought to set made the show impossible to copy. He didn't just act, he existed, and that raw authenticity turned chaos into art.
Any questions? Yes.
What do you know about prostates?
Fact 13.
Are they?
No, not now, Jane. Can't you see I'm posing?
But the inspector's here.
When Waiting for God was sold internationally, it became unintentionally hilarious. In Germany, Diana was rewritten to sound gentle and nurturing. The French dub turned Tom into a romantic dreamer rather than an eccentric philosopher. But Spain took it further, renaming the show Esperando al Ángel, Waiting for the Angel. Jokes about death became metaphors for redemption. Even the dialogue about bureaucracy turned into spiritual lessons. It was weird but oddly beautiful. Despite the changes, foreign audiences adored it. They didn't need British sarcasm to understand rebellion or friendship. The show's emotional honesty spoke louder than its punchlines. Michael Aitkins said he loved watching wrong versions done sincerely. It proved that the show's heart transcended language. Even when the jokes were lost, the humanity was perfectly translated, and that's probably why Waiting for God still connects across cultures.
One day she will find me stiff as a board with a stake through my heart.
I'm sure that's not true.
She keeps garlic and a crucifix in her handbag.
Fact 14.
The lad either parachuted to safety and your heart would leap, or he plunged into the sea and you all died with him.
For decades, fans have whispered about a missing episode too dark for TV. The rumour claimed it dealt with euthanasia and was pulled at the last minute. Some swore they'd seen clips in old BBC broadcasts. Others insisted the episode was destroyed after complaints. In truth, a script about assisted dying was written but never filmed. The BBC rejected it for being too serious for comedy. Michael Aitkins later confirmed it wasn't banned, just abandoned. Still, the story refused to die, spreading through fan magazines and early internet forums. Fans even wrote their own versions of the lost episode. The myth became part of the show's strange folklore. It perfectly fit the series' tone, laughing in the face of the inevitable. Even though it never existed, it became one of the most talked about episodes of all. And that's the weirdest part. The story was so believable because it felt like something Diana would have dared to say.
Easy, darling. I'm not going to run away.
Fact 15.
Oi, how about a two?
Red rum in the National.
Years after it ended, Waiting for God still feels ahead of its time. Younger audiences discover it online and are shocked by how modern its humour is. Diana's sarcasm and Tom's optimism remain timeless opposites. Together, they redefined what ageing could look like on television. Stephanie Cole became an icon of wit, independence, and unapologetic truth. Graham Crowden turned eccentricity into wisdom. Writers from Afterlife to The Detectorists cite it as an influence. It proved that laughter about death isn't morbid, it's healing. The show taught viewers that growing old doesn't mean fading away. Even its title became part of British slang for endless waiting. Its warmth, weirdness, and honesty still shine decades later. Waiting for God didn't mock aging, it celebrated survival. That's why it endures, not as a relic but as a rebellion. And maybe that's the funniest thing about it. It's still alive, still defiant, and still wonderfully weird.